Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamitte, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Oh, yeah. Good morning, everybody. That's right. It is Friday, July 14th. It's finally Friday. And guess what? Everyone is going to love these days today. Oh, here we go. Today is National Nude Day. So I guess, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? As well as, of course, it couldn't be National Nude Day without being National Tape Measuring Day. On top of it's also Bastille Day and National Grand Marnier Day. And oh, yeah, that's right. It's National French Fry Day. That's right. Dip it in some ketchup or some whatever you like. You know what I mean? And, of course, you can't have any French fries without having some National Mac and Cheese Day. And it's also World Kebab Day. And last but not least, it is Collector Car Appreciation Day. Thank you for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. That's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. Use that fancy little QR code right there in the top-hand corner of your screen to see where we live at the internet. And we're live every Monday through Friday on YouTube and audio only on Twitter Spaces. Oh, yeah, and if you want to join on Twitter Spaces, you can also participate in the show by raising your hand if you have a brief comment on the story most recently presented. But today I have the dope dad in the studio with me right here. Oh, yeah, sunny Florida. That's right. Oh, yeah. It's the dope dad himself. He is the professional flip-flopper, the professional backpedaler, and, of course, oh, man, you know what? He's going to be dunking some things in the water today with his story. That's right. It's the dope dad himself. It's Rico Lamitte.
Y'all get a round of applause, you know what I'm saying? There we go. So today's story is dedicated to Gretchen Gailey. You're going to absolutely love this one. All right, so this Wednesday, a publicly traded Massachusetts-based retailer thought that it would be cute to engage in a little colonial-era cosplay. A large group of Merry Men senior executives and staff sailed out to the Boston Harbor and dumped large boxes labeled weed into the water in protest of IRS Code 280E, the infamous federal roadblock to plant-touching cannabis company tax deductions. We're going to play a clip. You got this? You going to play this clip?
Yeah, are you ready for the clip, Adam?
No taxation without representation, down to 280E. No taxation without representation, down to 280E. No taxation without representation, down to 280E. No taxation without representation, down with 280E.
All right, that's enough.
Hear ye, hear ye! Ye faithful Merrimack patriots! 250 years ago at this very same Boston Harbor, our colonial ancestors held the most famous tax protest in our great nation's history. The Boston Tea Party.
Lies.
Today we have stormed this schooner to protest an unfair tax. It's a tax that burdens our beloved cannabis industry, and it hurts the American consumers we serve. Because of Section 280E, cannabis businesses in our fine country pay much higher taxes than they should. And the citizens of this fair land pay higher prices for the safe and effective products we produce.
Okay, you can cut this shit, man.
They were speaking Gretchen's native tongue there.
Yes, they were. Speaking in many tongues, I might say.
My people.
So you're going to love this then, Gretchen. So even though former Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker decoupled state tax code last year, operators still bear the burden of federal taking up to 3.5% more than non-cannabis peers. So MariMed CEO John Levine took action. His words through a press release read, "No taxation without representation. The federal government is collecting unheard of taxes at much higher rate because 280E, and they're not looking at rescheduling, even though more than half of the states have already legalized some type of use of cannabis, treating us like criminals because they're reaping the benefits of these taxes, and it's not fair representation." Decent statement, poor messenger, and poor context. While the words resonate with many, 280E barely affects companies like his. MariMed actually is a publicly traded company that reported $134 million in 2022 revenue. Not much financial risk is at play with these big boys. Though Levine's public excuse is MariMed's riding for the little guys. They've already stomped out much of their local competition, and they'll most likely outlast the rest. There's plenty other ways to spend excess corporate cash to make a community impact than tone-deaf stunts built off lies like this one. Let me continue. Tens of thousands of dollars on costumes, colonial ship rental, film crew, PR, cleanup, and I'm sure a slew of other expenses all carved out of investor cash. His statement continued. 250 years ago, our patriot ancestors protested taxes, with the Tea Party being a Massachusetts native and our company headquarters being here in Norwood, Massachusetts area. We're taking advantage of the opportunity to protest another unfair tax in 280E. That'll show them. You know, I think I'd rather buy my weed from someone with a little more self-awareness, who doesn't make jokes about the same clearly rigged in their favor system and respects my ability to push back on bullshit propaganda like this. So here's where you're probably going to get mad at me. Pretty much everything that we've been taught about the Boston Tea Party was a lie. The colonists were not protesting high taxes on tea. The Tea Act of 1773 was a British government bailout of the East India Company. The Boston Sons of Liberty were actually British colony propagandists looking to get folks more comfortable with paying more taxes to the crown. The ships that they attacked, they were American ships, not the King's. The Beaver, the Dartmouth, and the Eleanor, they were all built and owned by Americans, not Brits. The tea that they destroyed, it wasn't the King's tea. It belonged to the East India Company, chartered to transport green tea from China. Not chamomile, Earl Grey, not Yorkshire. It was George Washington's noted favorite, Chinese green tea. Another lie. The original bullshit political stunt never sparked the revolution. Washington's gripe was all about British authoritarianism and the acts of lawlessness and violence carried out on colonists, especially their private property. The event may have had a little influence, but not much. And about those infamous Indian costumes that they wore. If the protesters were indeed dressed up like natives, it is not clear that they were. Lucky to check the sources. It was most likely to place blame on the former hosts that they've already genocided the fuck up over the last 30 years and to mask their identities because they were, criminals committing crimes. And finally, nobody ever even called it the Boston Tea Party. That shit went down in 1773. The first time the Boston Tea Party even appeared in print anywhere was 50 years later, 1825, and it was using the word, quote unquote, party to describe a group of male assailants. Not an afternoon raising your pinkies and sipping air with your daughter and her friends. Before y'all start with the bullshit, woke-ass CRT website shit like Jason did.
Oh, yeah, I did.
And I just showed him. These facts were actually found on the History Channel's main website, also on Encyclopedia Britannica, History.net, the Free Range American, a right-wing website, and also several sources. Let's call this shit what it is. A bunch of rowdy-ass, rich, privileged white boys dressed up in black and brown face, fucking up other people's property and being celebrated for it. Because even 250 years ago, there was no consequences to them doing shit like this and blaming it on communities of color. In 1823, ironically 2 years before the Tea Party was first mentioned in print, Napoleon's memoirs were released, and in them, he famously said, "History is a set of lies agreed upon." Whether we're talking about 280E or social equity, the narrative behind the common man's struggle is being hijacked by elites with the scales already tipped in their favor. So I guess what we're seeing here in real time is diehard community activists over there at MariMed making their colonizer ancestors proud. Legacy is legacy, right, Jason? I'm Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street. Let's talk about it.
Oh, man. I want to hear what Gretchen has to say in regards to this first.
First of all,
I'm trying to understand what you're doing here, Rico. Are you bitching about Merrimet or are you bitching about the Boston Tea Party?
He's bitching about both.
I'm calling a spade a spade. I'm calling out facts, and I got my sources ready for all of y'all. Let's go.
So to think that the Boston Tea Party had zero impact is kind of not true.
I didn't say zero, at minimal, at most.
There were a number of resistant acts, yes, prior to the revolution by folks like the Sons of Liberty. You want to call them terrorists, thieves, whatever the fuck? Sure.
They were
but
British
when you win the
sympathizers.
War, that's not what you're considered. You're considered a patriot.
Yeah.
I would not go on to say, what did you call them? British sympathizers? Are you out your damn mind?
Look it up. They were sympathizers.
Dude,
Several. Look at all the sources I listed.
Were my fucking ancestors.
Oh
and I
yeah.
have no problem
You were alive then.
them.
You were alive back then.
I said they were my ancestors, Rico. I didn't say that I was alive back then. My family came over here in 1607. Yes, we did. I'm very proud of it. I'm proud of my history. I'm proud of everything we did. And before you go down the road, no, we did not own slaves. We were
because you lived back then.
So many family members who died in the revolution.
She
Plenty
mad.
died in the Civil War. I don't want to fucking hear it.
She mad.
And I'm sick and tired of this bullshit of
She
pretending
mad.
that everyone wants to live in this fucking presentism world where you think that the morals of today should have dictated the morals of fucking 300 years ago. That's not how it fucking works.
You know what? The Boston Tea Party was a lie.
What a lie. What is a lie? They were protesting taxes. Perhaps you don't agree with the tax how they did it and that it was to Chinese tax or Chinese tea, whatever. Who gives a fuck? They were protesting the what's the name of the company?
They were British. They were British undercover, and they were dumping George Washington's tea.
What the fuck are you talking
Check out
about?
all my sources: historychannel.com, the history.net.
Security video.
Hold on,
The
doesn't
point is, I have no problem with what Merrimet did. You think they're a bunch of woke guys who don't know shit. Fuck it. I don't
Did I
care.
say that?
It's entertaining. The goal of it is the same goal as the Boston Tea Party was to bring visibility to their cause and their bitching. That's what they did. Same
Lies and
damn thing
propaganda.
250 years later.
You know
The
what?
whole world's built on fucking lies and propaganda, Rico.
I grew up in the
Deal
South,
with it.
where they call it the War of Northern Aggression. When they call it the Civil War. That is that the truth? It was Northern aggression, and then all those Confederate soldiers were heroes.
Dude, Rico,
Is that what it is?
A fucking American history debate with you every fucking time. You want to bring up
I bring my
the
sources,
sensitive
baby.
facts.
Come on, baby
What
girl.
sources? What the fuck are you talking
You're so
about?
mad
How about
right
we talk
now.
About cannabis.
Oh man.
I thought that's what this show was about. Unless it's just baiting the fuck out of me.
Oh boy. You know what?
I want to throw in.
Go for it, Dale.
John Hancock was the biggest smuggler in the colonies. That's why
Yes, he
his
was.
name so damn big. So we have in our DNA. Tell us we can't do something. Oh, hold my beer. Okay.
Yes.
I just want to throw that out there.
Samuel Adams had good beer, right?
Oh man. You know, we're going to go to a commercial. We're going to be right back.
Yeah.
How's it going, guys? Saman Razani coming to you from Green Street here with Jason Beck, smoking on the best weed in the world. Did you know that we have an audio-only version of our podcast available on Apple, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Spotify? Tune in now and check it out.
That's a day.
Oh boy.
Spicing it up.
Yes.
The cannabis industry's longest continuously operating retailer, known for smoking the best weed in the world, and also known as Smoky Vanilla's tabletop muse. The man, the myth, the legend, Jason Beck.
Oh yeah, you guys. Happy Friday. I have a very short story for you guys today, but it's very, very intriguing. And it's all about the U.S. Secret Service. That's right. We've been following this story along. And the U.S. Secret Service ends its White House cocaine probe with no video, fingerprints, and no DNA available, they say. Oh, boy. The U.S. Secret Service said on Thursday that it had concluded its investigation into cocaine found at the White House and said it had been unable to identify a suspect. The cocaine was found inside a receptacle used to temporarily store electronic and personal devices prior to entering the West Wing, the Secret Service said, confirming earlier Reuters reporting. In a statement on Thursday, the Secret Service said it had been unable to obtain fingerprints from the package that held the cocaine and could not obtain a sufficient DNA sample to compare against a pool of people it had identified who could have brought it into the White House. The statement also said there was no surveillance video footage found that sparked any investigative leads. And in a quote, without physical evidence, the investigation will not be able to single out a person of interest from the hundreds of individuals who passed through the vestibule where the cocaine was discovered. The Secret Service said at this
Vestibule. It's a word.
Thank you, Gretchen.
Vestibule.
Vestibule, yes, vestibule, yes. There we go. Thank you, Gretchen.
Mad. She's still mad.
She's still angry. It's okay. The Secret Service said at this time the Secret Service investigation is closed due to lack of physical evidence. Oh, man, you know what? I'm not buying this story at all. Now, I do believe that there's no way that they were going to get any fingerprints or DNA evidence off of the bag, and they could have possibly gotten some DNA evidence off of the straw, but I do know that DNA evidence is extremely hard to get and has to be like preserved in special ways. But the fact that they're saying that there's no video footage to show any of this, I'm not buying that for a second in the White House, where there is more cameras than anywhere else on the planet. And this is Jason Beck digressing for High at 9 News. What do you guys have to say about this?
Can we please talk about weed?
This is plant-based medicine.
Hat and the laser light. What are you chasing this shit for? People use coke. It's like check the let's dump your drugs before you get on an airplane at the airport. That's what this. I mean, okay. Gretchen, let's talk about weed, okay?
I ain't got time for this.
Oh,
Call me when you're ready.
oh
When we
boy.
get to weed, let me know.
We're almost ready. If you don't have anything to say about this, you're just gonna file your nails. Oh, that's real cute.
I say like
Gesture of contempt.
free Hunter Biden. Hashtag free Hunter Biden.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy.
What's an email?
All right. Seeing as how you guys, Dr. Talleyrand, you have any thoughts on this at all, Dr. T?
Please say no.
I'm curious, did they wipe the fingerprints off of the baggie or what? I don't trust the Secret Service. That's my only comment.
Yeah, I don't trust him in that, but I do know from personal experience that you cannot take fingerprints off of plastic baggies. It doesn't the oils they don't stick onto that type of a surface. Same thing with like plastic wrap and all that type of stuff. Your oils don't stick to there, so they're not able to lift a print. So I'm not surprised about that. I did think they possibly maybe could get a little bit of a DNA sample from the straw if someone had put it up their nose or whatnot, but I guess they couldn't. And then, of course, they're saying that they have no video, but I'm not buying that for a second. All right. Seeing there's no comments, we're gonna roll right in to our feisty redheaded conservative with Mayflower roots, who loves to tell pot loving libs all about themselves and loves to talk about pot. And apparently, she has some pot story today for us. What do you have today, Gretchen?
Jason, I have a cannabis story for the people every day.
Amazing.
We the
Digress
people.
into bullshit.
We the people.
All right. We the people. F you. My headline is GOP-controlled House committee blocks every marijuana and psychedelics amendment to defense bill from getting floor vote. None of the bipartisan marijuana or psychedelic amendments that bipartisan lawmakers proposed as part of a large-scale defense bill will advance to the floor following a key House committee action. More than a dozen drug policy amendments were offered by members to potentially be attached to the NDAA, but Republican leadership in the House Rules Committee declined to make any of them in order for floor votes, despite the testimony of certain sponsors who implored the panel to accept them. Instead of hearing all that bullshit, I'm just going to tell you what they all Here we go. Let's see. For Representative Robert Garcia, he put forward prohibit the denial of security clearances for Defense Department workers based solely on their use of marijuana if the activity is legal at the state level. Representative Matt Gaetz, prohibit drug testing for marijuana as a requirement for military enlistment. Representative Tony Gonzalez, prevent the Department of Defense from punishing military service members from using CBD or other hemp-derived products. Representative Brian Mass, Barbara Lee, Dave Joyce, and Earl Blumauer allow VA doctors to issue medical cannabis recommendations to veterans living in states where marijuana has been legalized for therapeutic purposes. Representatives Dave Joyce, Earl Blumenauer, and Jason Crow required the Defense Secretary to develop a plan to provide re-enlistment waivers to service members who test positive for THC. Representative Mickey Sherrill, Earl Blumenauer, Dina Titus, Jared Moskowitz, Lou Carbajal, and Rick Larson expedite the waiver process for military recruits and applicants who admit to prior cannabis use by allowing the lowest level defense employees to issue such waivers. A second amendment with a similar aim was filed by the same sponsors. Representatives Madeline Dean, Nancy Mace, Bill Johnson, Jasmine Crockett, and Blumenauer put forward the Empower the Drug Enforcement Administration to transfer drugs like psilocybin and MDMA that have received breakthrough therapy designations from the FDA from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2. Representative Dan Crenshaw and Morgan Luttrell expand the bill's existing psychedelic study provisions to create a DoD grant program to fund research that investigate the therapeutic utility of the substances for the treatment of post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injury. Representative Susan Weil, following the DoD-led clinical trial into the therapeutic efficacy of psychedelics that's already in the bill, the agency would need to include in its report a recommendation on next steps for further exploring the therapeutic option. Representative Rashida Tlaib required the Defense Department to submit its findings on the psychedelic trials that it would require to conduct under the bill to the VA, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and relevant congressional committees, and not just the House Armed Services Committee, as the legislation currently says. Representative Ken Buck put forward an amendment which would express the sense of Congress that MDMA should be recognized as a treatment for PTSD and require the head of the VA to create a plan for such treatment if the FDA approves its use. A second amendment contains the same expression of the sentiment of Congress, but does not include the action item for the VA. Representative Lou Correa expressed the sense of Congress that officials should investigate all potential therapies, including the use of medicinal cannabis or psychedelics, to help our veterans to heal their visible and invisible wounds. And Representatives Mickey Sherrill, Kelly Armstrong, Stephanie Bice, Nancy Mace, Tom McClintock, Stephen Horsford, Bobby Scott, David Trone, and Brian Fitzpatrick all want to eliminate the sentencing disparity between crack and powder cocaine. And Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez banned the U.S. military practice of aerial fumigation in Colombia to eradicate crop.
Bastille.
At least I correct myself and don't keep saying vestibule or whatever the hell you were trying to say.
Hey, I was just pronouncing
used
it.
to manufacture cocaine. I could continue on, but for those who are disheartened by this, this makes, frankly, a great deal of sense to me that Congress did not take up these bills, because a number of them would have bypassed the idea that this is not a Schedule I drug. The government is not going to allow this shit into the military or Department of Defense in any way until there is some type of descheduling, or at least not Schedule I anymore. So to put forward all these bills, especially good old Matt Gaetz on prohibit drug testing as a requirement for enlistment, Jason Beck, I mean, come on.
I love
give me
that
a
bill.
break. Not happening. Oh, I told you the other day, not happening.
I didn't think it was either. I'm still going to support it.
Okay, well, bless your heart. The two bills that did make it in, that were already in the NDA to begin, was the one about the VA sort of getting to have to do clinical research if they want to on cannabis. And the other one, I'm trying to remember what the other one was. I want to say had to do with psychedelics. I will figure that out. But in the meantime, this doesn't surprise me. What are your thoughts? This is Gretchen for Hide 9 News.
Yeah, this is no surprise.
Yeah, I'm
right
not
on, Gretchen.
I'm not surprised by this either at all. This is just more of the same, more of the things. And I also wonder if this is just even more to your point, Gretchen, is political, you know what I mean, posturing for something else later on.
Yeah.
It's all political posturing. There's no way they're going to let these be attached to a defense spending bill. I mean, we're about to see shit blow up in Congress right now because they just put a bunch of things on a defense spending bill that are just not going to get past Congress. And we still suffer from the legacy of people, and Joe Biden was part of it. They changed all these rules at a period of time when the war on drugs went crazy, and we're still suffering from it and cracking through this. If you want to kill these bills, attach them to something that's never going to get passed, and that's what it looks like they're doing. Get some political propaganda out of it, but this is, like Gretchen said, there's no goddamn way they're going to let people smoke weed in the military or anything like that. It's just not going to happen.
I agree. They definitely.
As usual, I'm right.
I don't know about all that, but okay.
I mean, and I did find the other bill. The other bill also has to do with psychedelics research. So again, like I've always said, Congress's appetite for cannabis and psychedelics is research to punt the ball down the field for a little while longer because they're not ready to deal with it.
Not to get them access.
Yeah.
Is this
Research, I'm sorry, John, I want to cut you off. The research has been done. My father-in-law was a psychiatrist, and he worked for the Public Health Service, did his residency just after World War II. And during the 50s, they were playing around with every drug you could think of. And they stumbled upon the antidepressant effects of psychedelics. It was not brand new, and they did a lot of research into it. And that's the leg we have up from when they took marijuana out of the national formulary. No one was doing anything with it, tried to eradicate it from medicine, while psychedelics were being promoted as something that held a better future than some of the antidepressants that were developed in the 1950s. And they still show more promise than that. So it's out there. We have a leg up. I think it's going to have less problems than weed because weed was just vilified and it's immoral to use it and all this other kind of stuff. So, yeah, the research is there. John, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No worries. I had a question. Do you guys think this is political posturing? So, because the constituency, of course, is supporting cannabis, right? And so, if they're not doing anything for their constituency, maybe they are going to be looked at as negatives. So, even though they know this is not going to pass, they've got to say something and throw things in there. That's my guess, but I'm not the politico.
You're asking why they were putting forward bills they know aren't going anywhere?
Yeah.
Yes, I do believe it's political posturing. I think there's only one. Let me go back to this list. There's only one which I'm disappointed did not get action, and that was let's see, which was the one that had to do with allowing, from Tony Gonzalez, prevent the Department of Defense from punishing military service members from using CBD or other hemp-derived products. In theory, these products are legal, so our service members should not be being punished for those. So that, I think, should have been taken up. I think that's the only one here that really gets around because it has to do with hemp and hemp-derived products. It gets around the whole Schedule I issues with the military.
Well, I mean, so I think the reason why they're blocking this is because a lot of these products aren't regulated in the form of other products, and the fact that a lot of these servicemen and women could be testing positive if they're allowed to consume those products.
Well, no, they're not. It's a backdoor around being a Schedule I drug. I mean, so they think, all right, if you let these guys test positive for cannabis in the military, that says the federal government, the military, is approving of this illegal substance. And they're not going to do that. There's absolutely no way.
Sad.
Zero ways.
There's always
Maybe
a way.
this is just a sign that rescheduling or descheduling is around the corner.
Or do you think they'll stop? They'll just stop testing them?
No, that's just wishful thinking. I think, Dr. Talleyrand, that is super wishful thinking.
You think like a little don't ask, don't tell, Rico? I don't know if they'll go down that road again.
Yeah, I don't think they have the appetite for that one.
You can't put weapons into people's hands and then not know if they're on a substance or not.
Oh my gosh, you gonna take that route? But
yes, I'm from the PR perspective. Yes, you cannot take that route. And especially if pot mellows you out and you just want to chill and not blow someone's head off, not helpful when you're in the military.
Okay, but if they're hungover, just playing devil's advocate here. If they're hungover, they're allowed to go shoot up some people.
I'm not going into alcohol. We're not taking it down that road. I'm saying let's keep the conversation on track and talk about cannabis here.
How
do you think soldiers should be allowed to consume if they're out in the field, ready to be doing stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Weren't they supplying during Vietnam? Weren't they supplying the soldiers with cannabis
No, I don't think they were supplying the soldiers with weed, but there was plenty of weed out there, and they were all smoking. They were all doing shotguns out of shotguns, literally.
They were looking the other way, and that's why Nixon started Operation Golden Flow, because China White was what they turned to. When you're all spun out from shooting people, they smoked or shot up heroin. That was a big problem they had, because when you got home, you had a monkey on your back. Smoking weed, it was everywhere. Every mama was pulling a big plant down the street, cutting it up and selling it to GIs. And did they smoke it in the field? Yeah. But basically, when they came back out of the field, they poured alcohol in them, but weed was everywhere. I mean, and on the ground, they just gave up trying to fight weed. Heroin was a different problem, because they set up facilities in Germany where they sent people. When I was in the military during the Vietnam War, we had to go piss. But the problem was that my friends that I partied with did all the drug testing. So those of us who knew the right people never tested positive for anything. Not that I'm admitting to anything, but we smoked a lot of weed in the military.
Sounds a lot like the NCAA.
It's an interesting question because, historically, even Napoleon soldiers are noted to have smoked cannabis or used cannabis. I think it military and cannabis goes hand in hand and has gone hand in hand for a long time, even though it's still a don't ask, don't tell kind of situation.
It should be passed from hand to hand.
Someone to propose that research bill on smoking it during combat, and let's see how that goes.
Well, I think Matt
Gaetz can take up that bill.
Well, I think they can actually. I think you can actually do a study on the psyche from the story we covered yesterday in regards to the DEA telling everyone to just play video games and not to smoke weed, because the majority of those video gamers are shooting people every day and they're smoking weed all at the same time and got high kill counts
and spilling high military secrets on Discord.
Yeah. Well, when people start shooting real bullets, those pussies need to stay out of my way.
Yeah, get on, girl.
It's not like dodging bullets for real.
Oh
man.
Yeah.
And you're right, Sean. When Napoleon took his army to Egypt, they came back with hash. They were very happy to bring it back. And going back to the Scythians, they were, let's hotbox everybody and smoke some weed. It's been going on for a long time.
Apparently, Napoleon wasn't happy that his soldiers brought it back.
Well, shit happens, right? And that's the problem. We have a de jure, what they write down, and de facto, what people actually do. And you can write any law you want. People are going to do this kind of stuff. And right now, they're having trouble filling the ranks. So at some point, someone's going to be screaming bloody murder. Hey, we need people to fill our ranks. And if keeping them out because of weed's a problem, we're going to have to do something about this.
Facts. And everybody knows
I have a whole other plan to fill the ranks that has nothing to do with cannabis, but
Napoleon,
that's for another show.
The draft won't work too well now, girl. It just won't.
Napoleon's story was very complex.
We're gonna go to a commercial. We're gonna be right back.
The Control Tower from Highly Educated has perfected the dab. Utilizing the concept of thin film evaporation, you can waste none of it and taste all of it. The micro texture of the SE pillar increases nucleation at elevated temperatures. And With the tower propelling at 2,600 RPMs, it's certainly the most efficient dab experience to date. The control tower from Highly Educated.
Oh, yeah. Whatever you're doing right now, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure you hit that like button. And also, too, thank you all for tuning in today. Do you have another commercial, Adam? Run it.
Keeping up to date on the evolving policies of relevant state, local, and federal governments is key to success. When the future of your business is at stake, you need representation as dedicated as you are. With a maze of laws and regulations surrounding cannabis, hemp, and psychedelics, knowing where to begin can be a challenge. Good Thing to Law offices of Omar Figueroa features a skilled, highly focused team ready to guide you through it all. They're accepting new clients in California and New York. So make sure you check them out at info@omarfigueroa.com. Coming up next, this legendary cannabis doctor is the founder of Medican and co-founder of CESC. He probably wrote Yo Mama's Rec, so show some respect for Dr. Jean Talleyrand.
Thanks, Rico. Happy Friday, everyone. So my headline today is from MJ Biz Daily. States give cannabis data to Biden administration for rescheduling review, by Chris Roberts. At least 5 states with medical cannabis programs have shared key data with U.S. health regulators as part of the Biden administration's review to remove cannabis from the federal government's list of the most dangerous drugs. The data includes information on cannabis products patients are using and how they are affected. The state data offers federal researchers a wider and deeper look into cannabis. By sharing data, the state officials hope to influence the ongoing federal review of cannabis under the Controlled Substances Act, which serves as an immovable barrier to long-awaited federal cannabis reform. President Biden ordered the review last fall. So far, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, Minnesota, and Utah have shared information with the feds. Dr. Johan Marku, serving as scientific advisor to the Coalition for Cannabis Scheduling Reform, a collection of multi-state operators, predicts this is going to be some of the most important data considered. The fact that states have provided data to the feds is a rare peek into the process, which federal health officials have kept a near secret so far. Spokespeople for the federal health agencies have declined to elaborate on their process. So much money has been put into understanding the risks of illicit cannabis, says Marku. By comparison, there's been very little research into legal commercial cannabis. David Rack, a research manager at the Minnesota Department of Public Health's Office of Medical Cannabis, told MJ Biz, "We collect data from our patients every time they go to make a purchase at a dispensary. We have a fair amount of data to analyze. In general, we have had very few adverse events reported from cannabis use." Biden signed the cannabis research bill last fall, but critics have told MJ Biz Daily that the bill is failing by design. The Washington lobby group Smart Approaches to Marijuana, or SAM, says it helped draft the bill and guide it through Congress. SAM is one of the most vocal anti-legalization groups in the country. Shane Pennington, a cannabis policy attorney, is a staunch critic of the bill. According to Pennington, the law gives new authority over cannabis to the DEA, the biggest enemy of cannabis science that's ever existed on planet Earth. No one really knows if the state's data will be persuasive to the scientists at the FDA and HHS. The data is anecdotal, whereas traditional clinical trials are rare. Andrew Friedman, director for the Coalition for Cannabis Policy, Education, and Regulation, says, the other thing that's going to confuse this analysis is what cannabis are we talking about? Are we talking about someone who uses shatter 3 times per day or someone who smokes half a joint with someone on a Friday night? Most experts agree that federal health officials are unlikely to remove cannabis from the Controlled Substances Act. Some hope that cannabis is rescheduled. Section 280E does not apply to drugs classified as Schedule 3 or lower. Griffin Thorne, a Los Angeles-based attorney, believes that the data will show medical benefit to the feds. Everybody knows that there's medical benefit, at least for pain, if for nothing else. But will that convince federal regulators? The review is due to the DEA by the end of the year. Should we expect rescheduling or descheduling sometime next year? What do you think? This is Dr. Jean Talleyrand with High at 9 News.
As long as the DEA is involved, ain't shit gonna get done with cannabis. They're just not gonna let it happen. I've been fighting them for decades. And going clear back to when they first came online and NORML decided we need to form up to go after these guys, it was clear. They had an agenda, and is that they're a law enforcement organization and they hate cannabis. And they're just not gonna let it go.
Dale, what if the HHS and the FDA says there are signs of medical benefit? Because that's what the research is showing.
Well,
is the DA going to refute that, or?
The problem is, John, is how do you get that question in front of a court? Every case I've been involved in, it was the administrative exhaustion of administrative remedies game we played with weed. You know, you ask for permission to do something, the DEA drags its feet until you're about to pull your hair out, and then you drag them to court, and the judge goes, okay, there's medical benefit here, but the question is, should I tell the DEA to take the next step? They order them to take the next step, file your paperwork, and wait another 5 years. What Sue Sisley did with her study, and it did all the entire 9 yards. I love that woman because she hung in there. Is they now have an official DEA study which says there's medical benefit to this. So I think the courts are going to be our best opportunity. Is if you hold up the requirement for Schedule 1, it's got to have no currently accepted medical benefit, and it's got to be highly addictive. Well, it's not highly addictive. It does have some of those qualities. But now there's an approved study that says there's a currently acceptable medical use which blows Schedule 1 out of the water. If we can get a court to look at that, they're done. What they do after they throw this out as unconstitutional is another question.
I agree with Dale. I don't trust regulators whatsoever. I think the only remedy we're going to get is going to be in the courts.
I think it's very, very highly possible that there is no rescheduling done in regards to this, but there is an announcement that will be made, like, hey, we're gonna do something, you guys, and that's gonna pass the time to get through to the next election, and nothing's gonna happen until after that. That's what I think.
But that's been the problem forever, is that, and I remember with Biden and the entire Congress back in that era of Reagan and the war on drugs, they all bought into, let's do this to people. They really threw 280E, the conspiracy enhancements, minimum mandatories all came in, and trying to unravel that has been, a 3 or 4 decade journey? Right. And the DEA just got stronger. So if you take the DEA on head on, then you're going to lose unless you're in court, where they don't have the power they have inside of these administrative bureaucracies. They could have their power taken away. The DOJ could take away a lot of their power. They won't do it. President could do a lot of things. He won't do it because he was pushing weed illegal status 4 decades ago. I just don't see this. I think the courts are going to do it. And as much as we might not like some of the conservative nature of court, I have no doubt Clarence Thomas would put the hammer down on them if he had a chance. Because there's just absolutely no justification. And if you read the Rates decision, man, he lit the DEA up, or the government's stance about cannabis up. And this was 2005, just before those son of bitches indicted me.
Hey, Gretchen, do you know the people that are pro-cannabis in the Biden administration? Are there any notables?
On the record, pro-cannabis?
Right. Yeah. Anybody?
I mean, you could look at the drug czar who helped develop the West Virginia medical program. He's pro-cannabis.
He's just
most
been
of the
reviewing.
HHS folks are on the research side. I can't think of many that are blatantly anti-cannabis. but out and about, yes, I love pot. Give me pot. No, there's none of those.
They're more of the cocaine crowd.
There's no weird cheerleaders, huh?
Is the drug czar today medically trained or law enforcement military trained?
I believe he's a medical doctor. I do believe.
Okay. Well, that's at least one step in the right direction. Doesn't have Barry McCafferty being the drug czar who wouldn't know a drug if it bit him on the ass. That's a step in the right direction. But back in the administration of Jimmy Carter, he had Peter Bourne, who was a psychiatrist. And I think he would have cracked open this Schedule 1, except that, some people saw him tooting a little coke with Normal and things went downhill. And then after that, we didn't get doctors for a long time. It was all law enforcement, military officials. So perhaps there's the stars are lining up better. But my experience is this is drenched in the bureaucracies. It's going to take somebody besides a politician to fix this. And I'm looking for the courts if we can get it in front of them.
I'm with you. I 100% agree with you, Dale, on the fact that I do believe Clarence Thomas would strike a lot of this down if given the opportunity. He is probably one of our biggest allies in the court in regards to this topic.
You think so?
Yep. When it comes to cannabis, yes, 100%, without a doubt. And with that, we're gonna go right on into Dale. I guess we ran out of commercials today. We're gonna move right on into Dale. That's right. Dale was a felon and now was an attorney, still an attorney, and he has some legal news for us today. That's right. It is Mr. Dale Schafer, founder of Armada Law Practice. What do you have to say, Dale?
Well, my story this morning comes out of Law 360. And Gretchen, this is sort of along the lines what you were talking about. There's a bill that's been Senate panel votes to combat social media drug trafficking is the headline. And the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee voted 16 to 5 Thursday to advance a bill that would require social media companies to report to the U.S. DEA the sale or distribution of illicit drugs on their platforms. And it's called the Cooper-Davis Act and would require social media companies to report to law enforcement the sale or distribution of fentanyl, meth, or counterfeit controlled substances when the platforms have what they call actual knowledge of these acts. And this bill is, I think it's in some trouble here. First of all, you don't have any privacy rights on these platforms. So if they want to turn over shit to the DEA, you don't really have a lot to say about it. I don't think people know much about that. But requiring that information that could be potentially criminal against somebody to be sent to a law enforcement agency, it's a lot of people's butts to pucker right up. It's like, ooh, I don't like this. And so some of the early comments, well, if the DEA gets it or the DOJ gets it, you just get to have this hanging around some record for years? Is there a time frame here? Okay. And Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, and that's a misnomer if I ever saw one, prevents any individual actions from these social media companies who might harm you. And this is attempt to run around that. One of the amendments they're talking about is giving people individual rights to sue these companies. Let's say your kid gets a hold of an artificial or a synthetic fentanyl-laced counterfeit Vicodin, dies at a party. Out here in California, they just convicted somebody for murder for doing that. Okay? Are we going to get these companies held responsible? And if you didn't learn the lesson from Donald Trump's company being found guilty or the Sacklers family being found guilty, none of those sumbitches went to jail because the people who make the decisions don't have criminal liability. So, if you're on a board and you decide to do something that's criminal, I think you should be held accountable. There's some issues with this too. And social media is not going to give up 230 protection. They're just not. They're going to fight this tooth and nail. This has privacy problems. It has First Amendment problems to it. And it has the real politic problem of these social media companies have more money than God, and they will have lawyers coming at you and lobbyists coming at you. And I see this as sort of pissing in the wind, but it gets headlines. Okay, so there's my start of the conversation. Let's take it from there.
I mean, I wish they could enact something in regards to this, because I tell you how many spammers I get that are just like little trap accounts and a whole bunch of followers or fake followers, whatever, 0 posts and just a Telegram app in their profile that I see a day is ridiculous.
Are they just going to bring the war on drugs online now? Is that what they're trying to do?
Well, I mean, that's the marketplace. It's not.
Well, but it hasn't worked. And see, it's this mindset that if we just make something illegal, okay, then we're going to be able to fix it. That's utter bullshit. That's been proven false for at least 50 years since the Controlled Substances Act was passed. So, and the attack should be, and Lindsey Graham saying, I'm going to attack 230. I don't think he has the balls to do that, but, you know, he can get some propaganda out of saying we're going to do that. I just see this as situation where you're going to have a war over 230. We're going to lose track of, we have fentanyl and meth being trafficked on the internet. Mm-hmm. How do we deal with that? And will somebody have the stones to go after these companies and make them responsible like any other drug trafficker? What does actual knowledge mean?
What is history?
Well, you know, Dale, it's interesting because if you consider the internet like real estate, okay, then technically they would be they would be able to be charged with that, because if they find drugs on your property, and they don't find anyone else with it, then you're usually the person that gets charged with it.
Yeah,
well, and that's true, but the problem is actually prosecuting somebody for this. And the general public thinks, oh, I made a law and it's going to work. And the answer is no. You get smart-ass lawyers, and I'm not saying I'm one of them, but most people say I'm a smart-ass. But I work with some very smart criminal attorneys, and they would eat this shit up all day long and attack it. And it's I don't believe in passing laws or regulations without a clear goal and a feedback loop that if you ain't meeting your goals, get this shit off the books. And this is, I think, is a lot of blowing smoke and trying to get some headlines. And this is just a bill. And as Gretchen knows, these bills get amended or they get sent someplace where they die. So the headlines are today.
Hey Dale, how do they prosecute the dude that went down for the Silk Road?
I'm not sure I can answer that, but typically they have aiding and abetting. They have conspiracy that helps get people wrapped up in these things.
Conspiracy.
And I mean, I got conspiracy charges, okay? And, I did conspire, so I was guilty and I admitted it. But that's how they bring you in. And the Clinton era really put conspiracy on steroids. He was no friend to the cannabis industry when he did what he did, because conspiracy just goes as far as they want, and it turns into a major problem. And with weed, it's not a specific intent crime. If you intend to grow the plant, you've committed the crime. It makes no difference whether your intentions to be medical or not were good. There's a lot of problems that go along with prosecuting people under some of these laws.
Dale, I'm trying to understand this piece of legislation a little better. Would this include cannabis?
No. I don't think so.
Could they make the argument that since it's federally legal that it could include cannabis?
Well, I would have to take a look at the inclusion or prohibitionary language. Okay, is it open-ended or does it have guardrails on it? And I don't know about that. They list 2 specific categories, fentanyl and methamphetamine. You can identify those. But counterfeit controlled substances, I mean, that may be enough of a open door.
That's kind of broad. Yeah.
It is. And so I don't like open-ended things like that. I like clear parameters so you know what you're guilty of and what you're not.
There we go. There you have it. There.
And Jason, you have an extra story today.
I do have a story for you guys.
Is this one about cannabis?
It's all about cannabis, Gretchen.
Oh,
it's all about cannabis. Are you ready for it, Gretchen?
He's going to speak Spanish. He's going to speak Spanish again. He's going to order a taco and a fried jolly and an enchilada.
Yeah. Well,
on Bastille Day.
I will tell you guys this much. My story does start off with Gretchen's favorite color. Because a Red Lake Nation to open Minnesota's first adult use marijuana dispensary on August 1st. That's right. Here we go. Minnesota's first announced adult use marijuana dispensary will open on August 1st on the Red Lake Nation. Native Care, a tribal-run medical marijuana provider, said this week it will begin selling to adult use consumers, adults 21 and older. The first day, it is legal statewide. Minnesota's new marijuana law allows possession statewide on August 1st, and while it will likely take at least a year until dispensaries are able to open outside reservation boundaries, Minnesota's tribes have sovereignty over marijuana regulations on their land. In a quote, "We see this as a resource not only to reduce harm, but to also bring in resources to help our people recover." Red Lake Tribal Secretary Sam Strong told the Minnesota Reformer, who first reported the development, Minnesota's first announced adult use marijuana dispensary will open on August 1st on the Red Lake Nation. Native Care, a tribal-run medical marijuana provider, said this week it will begin... While it will likely take at least a year until dispensaries are able to open outside of the reservation boundaries, Minnesota's tribes have sovereignty over marijuana regulations and their land. The Leech Lake Bond of I'm going to murder this one too, Gretchen. Ojibwe isn't interested in being the first out of the gate, spokesman Michael Costa said, but is asking band members this summer how they feel about the cannabis business. Leech Lake doesn't currently have a medical marijuana dispensary, and in a quote, "It's nothing but a benefit to us as far as economics go," they say. When hemp-derived edibles became legal in Minnesota, the tribe polled band members on the interest, and those who responded were overwhelmingly in favor of selling them, Chosey said. While Minnesota's marijuana law sets out a process for the state government and tribes to negotiate compacts over taxation and jurisdiction issues, the legislation protects the sovereign right of Minnesota tribal governments to regulate the cannabis industry. Native Care was established in 2021 after Red Lake Nation voted to create its own medical marijuana program in 2020, and the Northern Minnesota Dispensary said more information about adult use sales will be released later this month. Though the White Earth Nation also voted to create their own medical marijuana program in 2020 and could be poised to begin selling adult use customers on or after August 1st. This week, the White Earth Reservation Business Committee approved a first draft of an adult use cannabis rules, which will go out to the band of members for comment over next week. And in a quote, "A lot of this is just for internal controls and ensuring we are running a well-regulated industry," tribal attorney Antonio Salazario said at Wednesday's meeting. Chairman Michael Fairbanks said at the meeting he wants to find out the feedback we get from this. What direction is best for all of us? And in many states that have legalized adult use cannabis, medical cannabis providers were allowed to sell to adult use consumers while regulations for the adult use market were being set up. That was not the case in Minnesota, which has a highly restrictive medical marijuana program. And as a result, Minnesota's first adult use dispensary outside reservations may not open until early 2025 or after the state creates the Office of Cannabis Management and sets up a licensing system. Well. Sounds like the Native Americans are going to be eating everybody's lunch and gobbling up all the clientele in Minnesota and capturing all the market share. What do y'all think about that?
History will tell a different story.
I think it's funnier than shit. That they can cut through all this bureaucratic crap we have to deal with and take a poll of their band and make this legal. And jurisdiction, I appreciate that the natives got screwed in a lot of treaties, but they now have jurisdiction over their areas that the rest of us, regular folks don't. Mm-hmm. And I like to see them push the envelopes here.
Yeah.
Make some money, make people respond, and call them out as fucking hypocrites every place you can.
Yeah.
Jason, I'm just wondering, where is this place located?
In Minnesota.
Close to, I got that. got that. And then, is it close to an urban center where people might drive there to take advantage of this opportunity?
The article did not allude to that, but I mean, Minnesota is not that big to where you're just going to drive for 10 hours at a time. It's not as big as California.
Yeah, you do.
It's not as big. Minnesota is not the size of California.
All right,
Stop
take a
it.
look at a map. I'm not saying it's as big as California, but it ain't the size of Delaware. What are you talking about?
I agree with that. I agree. It is a decent sized state. I'm not trying to say that it's a small little baby state with only like one senator or anything. But all right. But
all states get 2 senators.
I meant to say one congressional representative, but it's I figured.
Get him, Gretchen.
They'll have buses going from the Twin Cities out there, catered buses. Come on out.
Oh, for sure.
We'll buy some weed. We'll transport you. Come on.
We'll roll. You can be on the tribal bus all the way home,
and they are on that Canadian border too. So
that'll be a great bus ride, huh?
I'm looking at it.
You're looking at it. It's up at the border.
Here.
It's up at the border, Gretchen.
Driving through the boonies in Minnesota, you might see a moose or two.
And I was talking with Rochelle Gordon because she does live out there in Minnesota, and she did say that she was going to reach out to the tribe and try to see if she could be there on opening day to catch some footage. And so if she does, we will bring that to you. You will be able to see that on our channel.
Huge shout out to Shinnecock Nation.
If you were to make the drive from Minneapolis, it would take 3.5 hours.
See, that ain't bad.
It's a nice bus ride, though, right?
Yeah. I bet you their Saturdays and Sundays are going to be busier than their weekdays.
Just a Sunday drive.
Add some mushrooms to the trip, and hey, it'll be momentous.
I'm sure you'll be able to find some of those on the Resi too, Dale.
Yeah, get your wizardry on.
Yeah,
Gandalf Nation up there.
Exactly.
We are at the top of the hour, folks. Thank you all for joining us for yet another episode of High at 9 News. You can catch us weekdays at 9 a.m. Pacific, high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to the super fans out there showing love, getting their comments projected live on the big screen. Also to our live audience members and online supporters catching us across all media platforms, tuning in and giving us feedback on the daily headlines. To our vetted correspondent team tuning in from all over, bringing us much needed variety of perspective and your respected opinions to the table. To our production team, Cloud Media Partners, House of Fuego, The Vortex, and all of our sponsors helping keep the lights on, keeping our AV struggles to a minimum. And of course, the lovely Jaja Simone over there holding us down on all the other platforms. To the haters out there, nothing but love from this end. Even if you don't respect history, it's all good with me. The facts are out there. As always, Cannabis Sativa L, the reason the High at 9 News team shows up and reads these headlines every single day. Thank you, too. It is Friday, July 14th. You all have been hit with today's top headlines. Hope it was enough for you to put in your pipe and smoke at least until Monday. I'm Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street. And today we're going to give it to Gretchen. What you have, man? I'll give you a little time to support
I would like
people.
to give a shout out to my ancestor, Stephen Hopkins, who came over 1607 to Jamestown. That turned into a shit show. He went home. Then he came back with the Pilgrims. That's where I get my Mayflower roots and plenty of other New England ancestry. They were proud American patriots, Rico.
All about those long form birth certificates, right? That's the Tea Party is really about.
Suck it.